Hello and welcome. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thank you so much for joining me. There are always so many great questions when I do a live Q&A. So during this time off, I thought I would share some of the questions that have come up from some of our community members that I think a lot of people can probably relate to, and maybe some compilations of some of my other videos. So I hope you find them beneficial, and I will look forward to seeing you very soon. Isabella says, I haven't heard the term betrayal trauma before. If a parent does hurt a child, does it mean that parent doesn't love their child? This is a great question. Just because there's so much tied into, does it mean that the parent doesn't love a child? How do we know if a parent loves a child, right? There's just so much in that. But I'm just trying to be really mindful of how I say this, because it's one of those things that there's a lot of nuance to, and I know can be easily kind of internalized in a way that may not be specific to your situation. So it might not be completely accurate for your circumstance. And I'm saying your, meaning anybody watching this. So the short answer doesn't mean that the parent doesn't love their child. The short answer is no. Now, does it mean that the parent doesn't love the child in a healthy way, in a way that that child deserves for that parent to love them? Yes, without a doubt. But I think that there's a lot that goes into somebody loving somebody and how somebody behaves around that same person, how somebody treats that same person. There's just a lot that goes into that, and there's never an excuse, ever, under any circumstance, never an excuse to hurt somebody. Certainly not abuse somebody, certainly not sexually abuse somebody, certainly never an excuse for a parent to hurt a child under any circumstance. But in terms of love, boy, we could talk for hours upon hours upon hours about what it means to love somebody. The reality is, I think that there are a lot of parents who, or a lot of people even, that can love somebody to the degree that they are capable of loving somebody. And I think that that is a really important piece to try to take in. Because when we think about somebody loving somebody, we have an idea of what that should look like, right? And it could be a romanticized idea of what that looks like, some fantasy of what it should look like, or it could be based on what we've seen happen for other people. And it could be a really distorted view in an unhealthy way of what that looks like. But for all of us, we are only capable of loving somebody to the degree that we feel safe in loving somebody, that we believe that our love means something to somebody, that we believe that we are worthy of being loved. There's a lot of factors that go into our capacity to fully love in a really healthy way. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody who is unhealthy in that way is going to abuse somebody else. Doesn't mean that at all. It can look a lot of different ways. That can express itself in many, many ways. But I do believe that, is it possible, let me say it this way, is it possible that a parent may not love their child and therefore they abuse them? I wouldn't say they don't love their child and therefore they abuse them. Because there's people all around us that we don't love, including children, and we don't abuse them, right? So not loving somebody does not make you abuse them. And that might sound really confusing, but I think that's an important piece of that to take in, right? So whether a parent loves a child or not, that is not what determines whether they are going to abuse that child. So I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but hopefully it kind of does. A parent being able to abuse their child has nothing to do with a child, and I would argue for the most part has absolutely nothing to do with how they actually feel about that child. Because what allows somebody to abuse another person, particularly a child, their child, has nothing to do with love or lack of love. It has something to do with something deep within them being inherently, I was going to say flawed, and I think that that is an accurate term. Now, I'm not going to say that it has to mean it permanently as a part of who they are that cannot change. Unfortunately, the reality is that most parents who abuse their children don't change because of whatever that is internally within them. They often are blaming other people, and so they're not going to do the work to try to heal whatever might be there potentially. So I know it's not an easy answer, may even be difficult to kind of really conceptualize, but I hope that that makes sense. And feel free to kind of ask for clarification or something, whoever might have some need for clarification, because I know it's a very complicated answer, but that dynamic is a very complicated dynamic, which is why it adds so many layers there.